Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zoom Work Transformation Summit. My name is Gary Sorrentino, and I'm the Global Deputy Chief Information Officer here at Zoom. I'm very excited to be here with you today for Zoom's second Work Transformation Summit, a thought leadership series designed to help us all better prepare for the reality of today's ever-changing work landscape. We kicked off this series in January with a summit dedicated to exploring the future of work and how an increasingly flexible workforce is fueling change and innovation throughout all of our organizations. As a natural extension, today we are going to discuss how this evolving business reality has impacted our collective ability to create delightful customer experiences. Today's customers have very different needs and expectations than just even a few years ago, and it is vital we meet them where they are on their terms. Think about it. Beyond being business leaders, we are all customers. And the way we interact with brands and companies has forever changed. Reflect on a time in the past couple of years when you've interacted with a business in an entirely new way. We use apps to bring our dinner and complex grocery orders right to our door, or make appointments to even go shopping. Things I've personally never done until the past couple of years. And as customers, we expect more from the companies we do business with. It is critical that businesses adapt and stay flexible while still delivering memorable customer experiences. And business leaders, they all agree. When asked for their top 3 business priorities, a Metrigy study of global IT and customer experience leaders placed customer satisfaction at the very top of their list. We are confident that today's Work Transformation Summit will provide an insightful roadmap to help you and your organizations proactively prepare for creating impactful customer experiences starting right now. We have a lot of compelling content for you today, including a keynote which is titled Humanizing the Customer Experience from Zoom's Chief Product Officer, Oded Gal, who will be joined in a lively discussion by Brian Solis, the Global Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce, who has been called one of the greatest digital analysts of our time. Following the keynote, Zoom's Heidi Elmore will moderate and host a panel with 2 outside analysts from Talking Points and Metrigy as we focus on reframing the customer experience. Next, we'll shift our perspective by speaking with 3 Zoom customers about the strategies that are implementing to successfully meet customers where they already are. Then we're hosting product tracks that provide a deep dive into 3 areas of Zoom innovation designed to help you better connect with your customers. Amplifying through meaningful connections via Zoom events. Supporting customers every step of the way with Zoom Contact Center. And our latest innovation, Zoom IQ, which is all about improving seller performance and customer experience. Finally, we'll wrap up the day with an expo that gives you the chance to ask questions and explore the new Zoom products that you find most valuable in helping you better connect with your clients. As you can see, today is packed full of thought leadership, information, customer perspectives, and solutions you need to create delightful customer experiences. So now, without further ado, let's look at a quick video followed by Zoom's Chief Product Officer, Oded Gal. And I'm going to leave you with this. Think about what you are doing to ensure impactful customer experiences. I'll be right back after the keynote.
The future is here, and it is hybrid. Zoom commissioned a study with Qualtrics to ask 7,689 people across 10 countries what they want the post-pandemic world to look like. The study found that 80% of Americans agree that even after COVID-19, everything will have a virtual component moving forward. So what does this mean for your customers? They want flexibility, transparency, and access, and your organization must be prepared for this shift. In a white paper commissioned by Zoom, Metrigy found that more than 45% of companies completed a CX transformation initiative in 2021, and an additional 32% are planning for a project in 2022. When video is part of the CX interaction, 59% of users say it establishes a better relationship with the customer. 52% say it helps their agents read customer sentiment. 51% say it makes interactions more efficient by solving issues faster. 49% say it improves customer relationships with more personal interactions. What are you doing to ensure your customers have a positive experience every time they interact with your brand? Welcome to the Zoom Work Transformation Summit, defining how to deliver impactful customer experiences.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Oded Gal, and I'm the Chief Product Officer at Zoom. When we launched Zoom over a decade ago, our goal was simple: to create a frictionless and secure video communication platform that makes it simpler for human beings to connect. We've come a long way since then, but we've done our best to remain true to that vision. And today, with no exception, today is all about you, your employees, and your customers, and how we can work together to create delightful customer experiences. This is something that we like to call the total experience. It's about ensuring that your customers leave any interaction with your brand or company feeling better than they did before that experience. To achieve this, businesses must adapt with bold new solutions, because the way they interact with customers has forever changed. And that is the reality. As Gary mentioned earlier, customer satisfaction has become a top priority for the vast majority of global businesses. So it comes as no surprise that nearly 3/4 of companies have hired or to hire a Chief Customer Officer or CCO to help achieve this goal. When companies have a CCO, they leverage technology and measure its success on revenue, customer satisfaction, employee efficiency, and operational costs. Those with CCOs report better success metrics across the board. But the ability to create delightful customer experiences goes beyond technology and hiring. It requires an organized and disciplined commitment to perfecting your organization inside and out. Much like when building a house, your business technology and processes must have a solid foundation that can support your growth at every stage and allow you to remain flexible to accommodate the unexpected. Businesses need the right tools and processes in place to give employees the ability to work in ways they prefer and excel no matter where they are located, to provide consistent communications across audiences. Equipped with this solid base, you'll be able to deliver happiness from within to foster meaningful relationships for your employees and ultimately your customers. Knowing this, let's start by taking a look at the employee experience. In 2022, companies need to upskill their entire workforce in order to succeed in a hybrid world. The future of work isn't limited to what work looks like, but how work is done. More importantly, how we collaborate. As humans, we communicate in many ways: in writing, verbally, non-verbally, and by listening and reading. Finding ways for technology to mimic these forms of communication helps employees replicate the experience of being in the office with colleagues, only better. This includes the use of new tools like Zoom's whiteboard that empowers both synchronous and asynchronous collaboration, or Smart Gallery that displays multiple video feeds from a single conference room to allow cameras to focus on groups of people, creating a better viewing experience for remote attendees. We're also exploring new ways of using existing tools as we see the rising demand for video and screen sharing across multiple use cases. As you can see, technology is the solution for keeping this dynamic and rapidly evolving world of work as collaborative and inclusive as possible. As a result, the entire workforce will require training on how to incorporate these tools in ways that increase collaboration and keep teams efficient, regardless of an employee's location. Business leaders are reimagining in-office and remote working environments with a focus on employee happiness, inclusivity, and productivity. With many companies now fully embracing a flexible hybrid workplace or finalizing their return to the office plans, business leaders are looking to adopt the right technology to create a collaborative and inclusive work environment that meets the needs of their employees, no matter where they work. At Zoom, we call this work styles. And even as we have begun to reopen a few of our offices in the US, UK, Australia, and Amsterdam, we know it is important to retain flexibility for our employees. Employees want to have choice and flexibility as to where and when they work, while also feeling included and connected with their coworkers. A strong employee experience delivers democracy and parity between remote and in-person interactions. You may ask yourself why we are focusing on the experience at a summit dedicated to improving the customer experience. It's pretty simple. At the end of the day, happy employees who are given more flexibility are more likely to positively connect and interact with customers. And happy employees are also loyal employees. A great example of this is Clayton Homes, where they have completely changed the way they work. Let's take a look.
Clayton Homes is a Berkshire Hathaway company. We are one of the largest home builders in the United States, but we are unique in that we provide a lot of different services around home building and home buying. So we build homes, we sell homes, we finance homes, and we insure them.
To be honest, without Zoom, I'm not sure how we might have functioned over the last couple of years. So we build homes here that we sell to the dealer. And so that's a long-term relationship sell, and there's a lot that goes into that. And we had always historically thought that it required us to be on site and in front of people.
In the middle of the pandemic, I started managing the call center, trying to figure out, ways to incorporate the remote workers and to be, engaged in activities and the things that were happening at the home office. That definitely was a challenge.
Many of us are moving into new work styles, new hybrid work styles. So it's important for us to keep that in mind and to ensure that we're creating a level playing field for all of our team members. And that's where Zoom came in. So with that, introduced the concept of Zoom rooms. It's easy to pop in to meet with people that are here in the home office with you, as well as quickly inviting folks that may be remote or working from home or at a different location to join a meeting. We use the whiteboard feature where we can collaborate together, we can annotate on, say, the design of a home.
We figured out how to connect people, internally. Even through the pandemic, we've promoted, I think it's over 25% of our team in the past year. So there's really not anything that we don't feel like we're able to do.
Pre-Zoom, our sales force in particular, were traveling out of the office every other week. I believe that going forward, what we will find is that there is not the need for people to be out and spending that time away from their family and that money from the company. But I think that we're going to be able to actually give a better experience to our customers, have them feel like that we're there and with them more often without actually having to be physically in front of them.
I think the initial scores that we had for our team member engagement was high because people were able to connect. And I did wonder what it was going to look like after we had kind of transitioned more to, being in the office 50%, some people still being remote. And we were really, really thankful to see that, our scores had increased by almost 20%. And Zoom's a big part of that.
Zoom is future leaning. We know that, if we think of an idea, the Zoom team has probably already thought of it and is probably on the verge of rolling something new out for us. So it's just exciting to constantly hear about new features, new ways of working, new ways of interacting.
Zoom has allowed us to continue to be what it is that we strive so hard to be, and that is to be a company that communicates with its people, communicates with its customers, and lets them know that we are all in the same boat, rowing in the same direction.
I love that story because it reminds us what the last few years have taught us. The importance of being able to pivot and remain agile along with real-world success that is linked to this ability. Predictability and conventional thinking are limited in today's world. Work, opportunities, and choices are changing faster than anyone can have expected or prepared for. A new way of responding is crucial. Your employees want tools that let them work in ways they prefer as their needs change. So we believe it's clear that when you set your employee up for happiness and success, your customer experience will fall into place naturally, the nirvana will all sing. And that brings us to the customer experience. First and foremost, customers expect instant access to 24/7 global support. And they have grown increasingly frustrated with call center hold times and impersonal treatment. In order to stay ahead, it's vital to become proactive versus reactive. We must analyze how to minimize support needs because customers have changed the way they consume. And if your company does not offer them the experience they desire, they will go elsewhere. Customers want to feel valued in a relationship that feels less transactional and more like a partnership. They expect transparency and honesty versus lip service. They need to feel heard and understood, and they want to follow through because companies need to deliver as promised and increase connections whenever possible. And here's the word again, flexibility. Whether healthcare, education, or attending events like Work Transformation Summit today, customers want to choose the method in which they connect with the organization, and that can change by customer type or the particular service that they're requesting. Keep in mind that the same customer might want a virtual experience one day and a live experience the next. This is due in large part to the fact that our customers have also experienced and adapted to the disruption of the last few years, and they're not going back. Apps and SDKs that help customize the customer experience, Zoom is a key component to this transformation. And we are more than just a tech stack. We're committed to providing consultation and thought leadership to assist your organization through this inspiring time of change and digital transformation. Today, we are revealing some exciting new innovations that we believe will help you better connect with your customers on all fronts. First, we have Zoom Events, which is a fantastic way to reach your customers and immerse them in your messaging and brand. And we continue to evolve this offering to further humanize the experience. A few new enhancements include Backstage, which provides a virtual green room experience that helps coordinate your team and prep speakers for the seamless show or event. Webinar Session Branding, which delivers a unified and professional look for speakers that enhance the production quality of any virtual experience held on Zoom events. And Webinar Reactions, which allows you to gauge the emotion of the room through visible emojis. Next, we have Zoom Contact Center, which is an omni-channel solution that allows you to support your customers via face-to-face video. We've seen a massive shift in the use of demand for video interactions and only predict this usage to increase. And last but certainly not least, we are proud to announce the launch of Zoom IQ. Zoom IQ is a sales intelligence solution that turns customer conversations into meaningful, actionable insights. This new Zoom product launches today and is available to explore immediately. You can learn more about all of these new tools and innovations in our dedicated product tracks later today. So, as you can see, from work styles to designing innovation tools, Zoom is dedicated to helping all of you succeed as you navigate the new customer experience landscape. But don't just take our word for it. We've invited one of the world's foremost CX experts to join us today and continue our discussion about how we can all lead the way in creating delightful customer experiences. I'd like to introduce Brian Solis, Global Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce, who has been called one of the greatest digital analysts of our time, and is an award-winning author of 8 best-selling books. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, Odette. Hello. Hello, everyone. What a pleasure to be here with you.
Great to have you here with us. I have a few questions for you, but I want to start with really, the high level, really to understand better what inspired you to become this global leader in customer relationship management.
Ever since I was a little kid, I dreamed of it. No, in all honesty, I think it's just because I'm a human being, and I have always been a geek. I've been in Silicon Valley since 1996, but I'm also a human being on the other side of the experiences many businesses deliver. And I saw an opportunity to create a bridge between technology, innovation, and human experiences, whether they're customer experiences, patient experiences, employee experiences, to lead innovation, not just in technology, but also in experience design and business model innovation. And that's what inspired me, was that I felt like I could have a voice, that I could make an impact in bringing organizations, executives, consumers, employees, customers all together in a better world. And I know that sounds super optimistic, but I've actually seen a lot of progress over the years, and it continues to inspire me today, especially now in an era of pandemic, post-pandemic disruption, as a real opportunity to make an impact. So, on that note, the work continues though every single day.
Yeah, definitely. It's very impactful to have such a passion these days. And around that, the next question is really, what are the trends that you've seen in the global marketplace regarding the customer experience?
But then, if we had 4 hours, I don't think I'd be able to tell you all of the trends I've seen in the last 2 years, but I'll do my best to summarize. One of the things that I know you know, but to everyone watching now, I'm also a practicing digital anthropologist, and that was what I felt I needed to become, to understand in the 90s, 2000s, and all the way to today, to understand the relationship that technology has in society, in markets, in workplaces, so that I can humanize those trends and translate those trends to executives who don't always live the world or life as their customers and employees do. So with that said, in the last 2 years, as you said in your presentation, we have all changed as employees, as consumers, as parents, as students, as patients. All in these last 2 years, we have had a human form of digital transformation. So it hasn't just been businesses that have been impacted, it's just been everyone. We've had to learn how to work from home. We've had to learn how to learn from home, shop from home. But with that said, that has changed us consciously and subconsciously. We've become more conscious. We've become more aware of the experiences that we have with businesses, the experiences that we have with work, things that we might have tolerated before the pandemic. We have we've become incredibly impatient, more demanding. I refer to us as accidental narcissists now, because we have learned that we can have what we want when we want. We've been exposed to instant gratification. We've been exposed to personalization. And once you taste those experiences, you don't go backwards. You don't say, gosh, I miss waiting in line, or gosh, I miss being on hold with a contact center, or boy, do I miss IVRs and hitting 0 and not being able to get to an operator. You expect the next best experience, and the best experiences that you have become the bar for the best experiences you expect across the board. And that's translated into things that it isn't just digital. for example, in our state of the connected customer research that we're releasing, we talk about the importance of experiences. Every year for the last several years, most consumers, in the last one, I believe it was 84% of customers said that the experience you deliver is as important as your products and services. They expect integration across departments. They expect personalization. They, believe it or not, the number one business transformation that they want to see from you is to be more trustworthy. The second thing was to have a more positive impact in society. So as we could see, it isn't just about digital experiences. It's about how digital enables more human, more trustworthy, and more meaningful experiences.
Yeah, accidental narcissist. I like that term. And the real term that you talk about, and that's the Generation Novel, or Gen N. Can you explain a bit more about this emerging customer segment?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for bringing that up. Just a quick set of context for those. When we say generation, we typically envision a demographic generation, so Generation Z or Generation Alpha. And Generation Novel was actually a psychographic approach to looking at how people have changed over the last 2 years. So, for example, we all have these devices, and of course, these devices were with us before the pandemic, and they were already changing us as a collective. When you're on your mobile screen, you move faster, you're multitasking more, you're in and out of experiences quite a bit, you're scrolling wherever you can, whether that's in line, waiting for something, as you're walking, which is dangerous, and let's not even mention driving, as you're in the restroom. So we've occupied space with our mobile devices going back to really the launch of the iPhone in 2007. But with the pandemic, it wasn't just about the mobile device. Now it was, we were officially, whether you were an early adopter or whether you were a 55-year-old parent, we all started to move through experiences very similarly. We all became digital first. We all became conscious of those levels of trustworthiness, as the importance of experience, the importance of societal impacts, things like climate change or civil injustice. These things we became hyper aware to all of them. So what that means is that Generation Novel says, whether you're 18 or whether you're 25, 35, 45, whatever the age is, that once you've started to live this similar experience, which is global disruption, living a digital first life, you're going to go through the customer journey very similarly. Why that's important is that it makes it a much bigger, much more urgent priority to not just digitize experiences, but to digitally transform those experiences for a much more savvy, connected, demanding, discerning, conscious customer. At the same time, and this is really important, because companies have radically accelerated their digitization over the last 2 years, what they're doing is they're making things essentially much more transactional. They're digitizing analog processes and experiences. And Generation Novel, since they're much more aware, since they're much more experimental, that's not good enough for them. So thinking bigger about this broader set of customer who isn't just digital first, but also conscious, aware. They've had their meaning of life moments over the last couple of years. They've changed their behaviors, their value systems, how they define success, who they spend time with. They've left their jobs in many cases to focus on the things that are more important to them. So just being good enough or just being digital is not enough for Generation Novel. And look, it doesn't mean that we won't be able to figure out what they want. We just have to actually connect to data, connect to insights, talk to customers, and reverse engineer what those experiences should be so that they lead our digital transformation rather than technology leading our digital transformation. It becomes a shift from what we or how we work to how we sell and why we work. It gives it a sense of purpose. It gives us a sense of operational innovation to rethink how we structure our company and how we think about our employee engagement and experiences to deliver more cohesive end-to-end customer experiences. And to think about innovation, this is improving what is, but to create net new value, because this Control-Alt-Delete moment affords us that. As an optimist, we have the chance to build the future that we haven't been able to get to for the last several years. And Oded, I could keep going, but I'll take a break right there.
No, but this is so true. And I think you kind of addressed the Gen N in your new book, The Life Scale. I just finished listening to it. Very inspiring. I'm a big believer in positive intelligence, so it resonated with me. And one of the things you mentioned is the concept of proactive wellness, which I found particularly fascinating. Would you mind expanding on that concept?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for listening. You know, of the 8 books that I've written, Life Scale book that I actually read in the audio version. I felt like I had to absolutely do that. So proactive wellness, you know, before the pandemic, we were starting to see that our relationship with digital in a personal capacity was actually problematic. So if you think about how much time you spend on this device, scrolling, posting, engaging in likes, trying to get more and more followers, losing hours at a time when it only felt like minutes, that, aside from losing time, it actually rewired our brains, it rewired our bodies. There's a movie called Social Dilemma on Netflix that really kind of blew the whistle on a lot of the design techniques that are used to occupy more of your time and more of your attention so that it can be monetized. Now that we live in a digital first world and we have to spend more time in digital, the need for wellness becomes not only alarming and urgent, but important. It's a real important opportunity for employers to look at how they can improve their employee experiences and the technology they use to make it better, to make it more engaging, more rewarding, to think about how we structure their days and their responsibilities, to think about wellness days, to think about who we bring in their day-to-day basis or how we structure those day-to-day routines, to give them time to be conscious about how they're spending their time and the effects of what these apps and services and networks have in their world. Your customer also is distracted. They're multitasking. They're coming in and out of the journey. And so when they have your attention and you have their attention, it's important that you think about proactive wellness in that engagement. How could you be the light in a chaotic day or a chaotic world or in a state of world where everybody is trying to figure everything out, or things are so divisive, or things are so stressful? How can you deliver a touch point or enable a digital touch point that makes them feel delighted, that makes them say, wow, they get me, this is nice? And so that proactive wellness isn't just about wellness and health as we might think of it, or mindfulness as we might think of it. It's also extending those concepts and those principles and those values to deliver better experiences to employees and customers in every aspect, so that they have an emotional and an intellectual connection to you. And that takes design. And it's also incredibly possible and incredibly needed. It's a competitive advantage in every front.
Yeah, so to continue on that, something specific to us, Zoom, and how can a digitally disruptive company like us help lead this transition, or any other company in our field?
Well, Oded, you have been. I have this really wonderful joke that says, I tried to be innovative, but I got stuck in Zoom all day. I think the reality is that what you facilitate has actually been, as one of your customers said, if it wasn't for you, they couldn't imagine operating today. And what you can do, and as you've been doing, is to introduce features that help people feel like they're alive, to help people feel like, hey, it's okay to not be on even when I'm on, to help the psychological effects of being in front of a camera and a screen and looking in new ways to develop these skills that we didn't really have before 2020. Look, live videos existed for a long time, but in the mainstream, we are now having to learn how to use these things. And I think Zoom, you've already been a leader. If I had to give any advice to you and also to those watching, it's really to take a moment to figure out how, from a content perspective and an engagement perspective, we could introduce delight. That we could introduce did you know experiences. For example, did you know that when you are online in a meeting, that you tend to exert additional energy that you might not in a real world setting, so that you can break through this fourth wall and have a much more electric experience that is different in a physical setting with that electricity that's present. But no, for the most part, look, I think that it's really also upon us as users, as managers, as leaders, to think about novel ways to use these technologies rather than facilitating just meetings or conferences, but to look at ways to deliver that delight through this screen. And that's magical, that's intentional, that's purposeful. And that, Zoom's facilitating, especially with today's announcements, all of these new and great things. And it's a matter of then saying, look, technology is an enabler for better experience. And an experience is an emotional reaction to a moment, an intellectual reaction to a moment. So how do we then think differently about how we use this screen here and what we deliver through it to connect with people on the other side, so that they feel like they couldn't have had this experience with anyone else or anywhere else? That's experience design. Zoom is facilitating the connection. So now what do we do with it? Employee meetings, finding new ways to engage them, to entertain them, to enact with them, to practice wellness through these screens, to think about maybe clienteling with customers or live video engagements in ways that help them feel like, hey, wow, they're getting really amazing face-to-face personalized service. There's so many ways that we can reimagine how to use technology to deliver these amazing human delightful experiences, that it starts with taking that step back and to recognize that I could use this to iterate upon all of the analog processes and experiences that I delivered before, there's nothing wrong with that. And I could also use this to create new value, to do the things I couldn't do before in ways that you're learning to love, or that you didn't know you wanted and that you could love, but now you can't live without it. And that's what's so special about it, because the combination between the two leads to disruption, which is doing these net new things that create net new value, that make the old things obsolete. And the minute they're obsolete, you're ahead of the game. And Oded, thank you for the opportunity to share those ideas, but I could always share more anytime, anywhere.
No, thanks for the advice. We'll take that. We're trying to build features around wellness and engagement, but this is kind of strengthening that direction. So thank you. And now for my final question. What are the key takeaways that our partners here today need to understand in order to create delightful customer experiences?
Thanks for asking. The first thing is to understand, what is it that your generation novel customer expects? What is the minimum viable experience to keep them engaged? Because that is the baseline experience you should be delivering. And that has changed since March 2020. I would also then understand, whether that's your surveys, customer interviews, employee interviews, whatever tools you have access to, at least to get started, is to then understand what are the experiences that they've learned to love since the pandemic. And I could tell you that it's going to be counterintuitive, but insightful, because they'll probably tell you things like Roblox or Discord or whatever their favorite apps and services are, DoorDash maybe. Maybe it's click and collect somewhere or curbside pickup. Because each of those experiences, even if you don't compete directly with them, are going to give us design cues, experience design cues, of which we then, the next step is to examine the journey that we deliver today. What are the experiences that we deliver in each touch point? And this is really important because it is a cross-functional approach to this research. You can't just say, well, I'm going to understand my marketing touch points, and I'm going to let service understand their service touch points, because everything is all about the experience a customer has. The next step then is to explore where you can make improvements against those expectations in these touch points. Okay, that's step one. That's called iteration. Step two is the innovation roadmap. Where can you reimagine those touch points? Or what's missing? And what can you introduce that starts to bring you into this opportunity of innovative experiences? Maybe some low-hanging fruit to share with you when you look at the journey between and innovation. What if you had to design a mobile-only experience? Play that one out. It's a little simpler. It's a little bit more digestible. Something that's a bit more actionable. It's what some of the best, most progressive companies are doing. Lastly, certainly not lastly, but just because we don't have all day, reimagine your services. So the things you deliver, not just products, but your services, how someone buys it, how someone might engage with the customer service afterwards, because all of these touch points are incredibly critical. You have, for example, McKinsey found that most customers have experimented with the new brand, and post-pandemic, most customers are going to stick with that new brand, which means that retention is hypercritical, and customer acquisition is an opportunity. So think about every aspect, every touch as not just experiential and not just delightful, but also as a form of marketing. I mean, customer service is marketing. For example, that most customers feel like if they have a great customer service experience, they'll not only stay with you, but it actually becomes a form of customer referrals and recommendations. So reimagining then those services and the integration between those services becomes your operational model for the future. So first, it's looking at the journey to fix, improve, and innovate in those customer experiences. The next step is to look at how we can re-operationalize around customer unification. And I'll give you a quick note. In some Harvard Business Review research that we sponsored, in fact, I have a whole series about this that I'm sure you could Google. We found that customer experience was the number one thing that companies were going to invest in the post-pandemic world. And knowing that customers demand personalization and unification, we found that only 15% of companies around the world had what we call customer 360 insights, so a single view of the customer across the organization and the operational capacity to execute against those insights in the customer journey, which means that it was unified, it was integrated. So only 15% of companies. We have a lot of work to do. And my colleague, Tiffany Bova, just published some research with Edelman that found that when you connect the dots between employee experience and customer experience, you actually can yield growth, and in some cases upwards of 50% of growth. But 75% of C-suite executives say that no one owns employee experience. And most executives will say that they think it's a choice between customer experience and employee experience. So as you think about your customer journey, do see if you can add some time and resources to explore how that connects back to your employee journey. Because this is a time where they need to be connected. Because EX plus CX equals not only growth, but experience innovation. So Oded, hopefully that helps. But boy, I'm excited for what the future holds for all of us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brian, for the insightful discussion. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity to connect with you. And I hope it's not our last time.
Yeah, let's follow up on that. Thank you again. I believe we can all see the massive potential for success that we can create when we combine stellar employee experiences with delightful customer experiences that meet everyone's needs. In closing, Zoom has the right products to help you create the total experience for both employees and customers. So while we realize that digital and cultural transformation can be confusing at times, the ultimate gains far exceed challenges. And remember that flexibility is key, and you need multiple modalities that you can switch in between seamlessly, because one size absolutely does not fit all. Your clients and employees are constantly changing, and so are their needs. So you need to put solutions in place that allow you to adapt and change to meet those needs. And finally, the past is gone, and it's not coming back. But the future is very bright for those who adopt the right products and strategies to better serve customers and employees. And it is our hope that this process begins now. We have so much more in store for you today, and we appreciate you being here with us. Now, I'd like to turn it back over to Gary, who will transition us into our Q&A with a few more esteemed
One, flexibility is essential to success. When done right, it creates happier employees, who in turn create happier customers. Two, customers want to feel valued in a relationship that feels less transactional, more like a partnership, and humanizing that experience is essential. Three, Zoom continues to innovate and support you with tools that help you create delightful customer experiences as you meet them where they feel most comfortable doing business with your organization. Okay, so we've heard from Zoom's leadership, and now I'd like to shift our focus to a panel with two esteemed outside analysts. Please join me in welcoming Robin Garris from Metrigy and Dave Michaels from Talking Points, as they are hosted by Zoom's own Heidi Elmore. Hi, Heidi, over to you.
Thanks, Gary. Greetings, folks. My name is Heidi Elmore. I'm the head of product marketing here at Zoom. I'm thrilled to be here with you all today as we dig into reframing the customer experience. So you just heard from Oded and Brian on the many factors impacting how organizations of all types can deliver delightful experiences. So in our 30 minutes today, live, I'm joined by two trusted voices from the communications analyst industry. They're leading experts in what it takes to retool your organization's approach to digital transformation, innovation that helps both your employees and your customers. So first up, I'd like to introduce Robin Garris, CEO and Principal Analyst of Metrigy Research and my data and research hero. Robin, welcome. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Heidi. Happy to be here. So like you said, I'm CEO of Metrigy. We're a company of 10 people and growing. And we basically advise CX leaders and technology providers on various customer interaction technologies, operational processes, success metrics. And we really make sure that we're using research. We conduct a lot of research to just have that real world information to guide people along their journeys, deciding what technologies to deploy and how to change operational processes.
Excellent, Robin. We're thrilled you're here. I know you have some brilliant research to share with you, so excited to geek out with you a bit. So next, we're also joined by Dave Michaels, the man, the myth, the legend, founder and principal analyst from Talking Points. Dave, welcome.
Hi.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Dave Michaels. I consider myself a enterprise communications analyst because I don't know what to call these different categories anymore. There's so many different categories. So just enterprise communications. I have a passion for this subject. I love this subject. I got into this because I love it. I loved what Brian was talking about with digital anthropologists. I think that's a great concept of there's so much change happening, and especially right now, things are really accelerating and changing in different directions. And I'm happy to be here and share some of these thoughts with you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Robin, both. Let's dig in. So Oded talked about this concept of a total experience, or the idea that great customer experience starts with employee experience, but wow, the last few years have taught us that can be, now flexibility seems to be key in that how they want. It seems that choice is at its core, and that can enable the most productive environment for all. Or as mentioned earlier, at Zoom, we call that a work style. So Dave, let me start with you. What are some of the trends
I gotta say, I love the term work style. I think that's a great term. I just saw an article. It was talking about how the technology keeps changing the terms and changing our vocabulary. I gave the example of a light bulb. A light bulb used to just be a light bulb, but now we have to say a LED bulb or a CFL or a halogen or an incandescent. All these modifiers we have to use all the time, and that's kind of happening with. It certainly happened with phone. Phone used to be something really simple. Everyone knew what a phone was. Now it's a hard phone, soft phone, a smartphone, a wireless phone, whatever, landline. No one knows what a landline is. But and so I love this idea of work style because the office is changing. We talk about home office, we talk about work office, talk about car office, but really what we're trying to get down to is the tech and the preferences of how we want to do our work. And I think work style captures that really nicely. So I love that term. What Brian was talking about, what Deb was talking about, so much has changed during the pandemic. We've all learned to be productive at home, and in many ways it exceeded expectations. But some things were harder at home. And some of the things that were harder at home were things like relationship building, ideation or brainstorming or whatever you want to call that. Another one is discovery. I mean, we used to just hear things, overhear conversations, riding in an elevator with somebody could really, give you a little tidbit of something going on at the office you may not have known about. So this concept of discovery was better at the office. And so now that offices are reopening, we're having to rethink about, we have to actively think about where to do what things are better to do at home, what things are better to do at the office. And it's something we hadn't thought about before, right? It's not, we just went to work before, we just did it. And some things we did because it was better there, and some things were more ceremonial or because we didn't have a choice. And so this choice that you're talking about, we now have, and it's additional responsibility. It's additional responsibility that lands on the employee as well as the employer. I mean, we're both having to rethink what to do, where, and when. And it kind of creates a queuing mechanism. I'm going to do this at the office. I'll do this later when I'm at the office. I'll do this at home. And employers need to facilitate with additional processes, equipment, tools, software, et cetera, to ensure that productivity occurs where and when it's needed. And that causes a forced reexamination on all parts of the things that we used to do. When we worked at home during the pandemic, we really nailed meetings and calls, but we lost the casual expressions, the gestures, noticing when people eat for lunch, even our commutes, which helped us connect to our cities, kind of got lost. So employers need to work now to make employers work to make the home as good as the office, and now it's flipping. We need to make the office as good as the home. And we're heading into a new future of work where both businesses and the tech vendors like Zoom are going to be making a lot of changes over the next few years to kind of adapt to these changes, these work style changes.
Absolutely, Dave. It's, remote doesn't equal all day virtual meetings. You have to actually do the work at some point. And the office doesn't mean just planned meeting or connections. Some of the value of those in-person interactions are the unplanned connections. So, and maybe you can comment on some of the announcements from Odette earlier on Zoom IQ for sales. So why obviously this can help both the employee experience for sellers and the customer experience in proxy. I wonder if you have any initial reactions.
Well, it's exciting news, first off. It's great to hear that. Zoom IQ sounds really interesting. Can't wait to see it. Before I answer your question directly, let me just say, and I'm sure Rob is going to say something similar, AI technologies are changing everything in communications, right? It's much more than people realize. We've seen it creeping up: transcription, translation, auto framing on cameras, virtual backgrounds, noise mitigation, image processing. But when you put it all together, AI is really changing everything. And so it's not a surprise, really, that Zoom is innovating more around AI and how it could be useful. Now, a lot of this AI stuff makes things better, makes meetings better, makes contact centers better. What I'm liking about Zoom IQ that I'm hearing is that it's going to make individuals better. It's going to make individual improvements. It could provide useful, actionable feedback that can include coaching tips, insights, action items, and it could be a really powerful tool. I can't wait to try this out. I think it's going to make people better by identifying basically the next steps and key takeaways, where you left off with different people in sales process. And that's all kind of a manual process now, so it should be more consistent. So very exciting.
Excellent. I agree completely. Now, Robin, so personally, it always feels like we're talking about the knowledge worker in this remote office hybrid world discussion, but there's a whole population of workers in customer facing roles like first line or especially the contact center agent. What do you think about in-office work versus remote work, especially for addressing agent turnover and retention?
Well, I think agent turnover and retention has become a huge issue, and that's because it's starting to go up again. So during the pandemic, you had a lot of companies looking for more agents. They were offering good incentives. You had people who didn't want to work from home. There were all different things going on. So there was all kinds of turnover. It's up to about 34% right now annually. That's huge. It's disruptive. Way dealing with this revolving door. So as we looked at our research, what we found, as you can see here, about 54% roughly of companies have an initiative underway to improve agent retention. And if you look at our research success group, and these are companies who have been able to document business metric success in adopting various technologies, so they've been able to see success at increasing revenue, decreasing costs, improving CSAT, and improving agent productivity. Within our success group, almost 3/4 of them have these strategic initiatives underway. So if you don't have this right now, this is something you really, really should be considering. And it's not just like this flippant kind of effort, it's an initiative. So when we look at what companies are doing, they have a lot of different methods of trying to retain their contact center agents. And these are contact center agents used to be sort of on this, island. That's changing now, thankfully. But they're very, very vital people to your organization. These ones, they know your customers, they know your pricing, they know your warranties, they know the problems you're having. You want to keep these people. You don't want them going to competitors, right? So what are some of the things you can do to keep them? You want to do things like agreeing to more flexible work hours, which work from home, and some of the stuff Dave just talked about is helping. Those things are helping in the contact center as well as employees at large. Increasing comp. We've seen a significant increase in compensation with the contact center agents because they're definitely more skilled now. AI, as we just talked about, is handling things like overnight mailing addresses and the basic questions like that. What's my account balance, right? Now our agents are much more skilled. So we want to make sure that the compensation matches their skill set. A lot of them have sales initiative, which, Zoom IQ can even help with that as well. So, you've got the increase in comp, you've got allowing them to work from home. We know that that's all working. In fact, about 57% of companies said that the work from home experience during the pandemic increased or improved management's view on the viability of that. A small percentage, only about 20%, said it decreased it. The rest kind of said it stayed flat. So it was if there was a silver lining during the process, that was part of it, that a lot of companies who never would have worked from home actually did and had a really good experience with it. And then they're surveying their agents, to gauge their happiness. Also establishing career paths. That's kind of understated. Again, you want to keep these employees in the contact center. So what can they do next? Can they go into HR marketing? Can they go into legal? Where else can they be? And then I guess I would also say, just if you look at this chart, you've got a lot of it's a little more leading edge and less than everybody else. So you see those last three things: adding agent analytics, adding gamification and company, making sure that you're taking those agents and making them grow, making them improve, improving their skill set. That's really what you've got the success group going to right now. Kind of the other areas are table stakes in many cases right now. So I think those are some of the key areas that we see. I'd say the other thing that I think is really, really important, and I'm not saying this because I'm talking on a Zoom event, I truly believe this, and that is that the use of video is really, really helping to manage those remote workers. In the contact center right now, only about single-digit 6% of companies have decided to fully return all agents to the contact center full-time. There's going to definitely be a hybrid workforce here, in the contact center. And so when we ask organizations how they're managing that remote workforce, video is the number one thing. It's very, very vital to improving and the whole management capability. You've got people in the contact center, they're so used to that in-person interaction. The supervisors are used to walking up and down aisles. So video is really important, as well as like team collaboration, screen sharing. You can see all these areas have become vital to being able to manage in the remote workforce.
Yeah, super interesting. I love all that. Gosh, only 6%. I mean, that just is a testament to the power of this new way of working. So we've talked about employee experiences for both knowledge workers and the structured task workers like contact center agents. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about why employee experience and customer experience are linked. So Dave, what are some of the key trends that you're seeing that can help us better humanize the customer experience by bringing these two things together?
There's every aspect of the customer experience process is in play right now. I mean, everything is there's nothing that's fixed. I mean, what is an agent is changing, where agents work is changing, the technology is changing, everything, the modalities, the communication is changing. So everything is in play, and it's really an exciting time. If you think about how much the way we interact with each other generally, forget the customer for a moment, just how we interact with our families has changed over the past few, let's say, from a phone-centric world to a centric to various messaging and social networks. Now go back to the customer and you think about the 800 number. It's finally beginning to fall off its throne, the only way or even the best way to interact with customers. I can still remember my best friend's phone number from the 70s, but I have no idea what my wife's phone number is or my kids' cell phone numbers are. No idea, because it's just not the way we interact anymore. And so not only the way we interact has changed with the customer and the agent relationship, but so much better self-service options have changed. True story, and this is a Zoom story. Actually, it's a true story. I made a bribing to them on the phone about what, and I just sent her a Zoom link. We got on the phone, we got on Zoom, excuse me, and I showed her with my camera and she knew exactly what part to fix and replace, and that was easy to do. But you can't do that with a big business today. We have at our fingertips in our smartphone, our cameras, our devices, our different modalities, our broadband internet, all the stuff that we have, and to think about reverting to that 800 number just doesn't make any sense anymore. So just everything's in play. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, the power of video in customer experiences, I really think kind of a next gen, an untapped opportunity that we're really excited about. So Robin, same question to you, but maybe a slightly different pivot. Why is connecting the front office, i.e. customer experience, and the back office, i.e. employee experience, so important?
Yeah, that's something we've been talking about for a while now, and we're really starting to see companies actually do it. So I think the big thing is you don't have a contact center, your whole contact center team on this island anymore. They're integrated in with the rest of the company. So they can be doing all sorts of things now, which is really cool. You always hear about being able to tap into resources, people who are experts, who are not in the contact center per se, but they have expertise to help close a sale or help answer a key question. Great, you can bring them into the discussion. But you can also have the other side of this happening. The contact center agents have a lot of really valuable knowledge. Why not bring them into a team collaboration channel and let them talk a little bit about what customers are saying, help with product development, help with a marketing strategy, help with the sales strategy. They can tell you firsthand whether it's working because they're talking to customers or prospective customers every
Agents
day.
are employees too, right?
Exactly. So, I think just bringing this all together, there's a lot of really great things that are happening there when you're able to I think bringing the technology together is what is kind of helping us operationally bring the people together. So that's all been working really well. So we're definitely seeing some good data around connecting front and back office, good, success metrics. I also think that it's very, very important to, and I'm bullish about this, to bring in what I call visual engagement. It's basically video, screen sharing, co-browsing, all of those capabilities. We do this in our personal life. We do this when we're talking to business colleagues. Why don't we do it when we're about to spend money on a company? It's like, it's really, so we're really starting to see companies doing this. We see about 57% of companies right now using video in their customer interactions. Now, it may not be every customer interaction, but they have available. So when we ask them why they're doing it, what is it, how does it help them? The number one reason is CSAT improves. Want to be able to do exactly what Dave was just talking about. I can't explain this, but let me show you. Or when I'm doing troubleshooting for an application, it's going to take me 20 minutes to explain. Let's just share a screen so I can show you what I'm experiencing. CSAT goes through the roof when you can do that. But also you have got time spent on calls is going to decrease, so you have an operational cost savings because you might be able to show somebody something in a co-browsing scenario. You might increase revenue because you say, okay, here are your three options. Let me explain them, and that visual just kind of helps them. But just overall cost decrease. So those are the big reasons companies say in our research why visual engagement is helping them, what it's doing for them. But if you look on the right-hand side of this chart, this to me is just really explains why I'm so bullish on this. And that is, we asked organizations when they were doing a CX transformation project, whether they were using, we correlated their data on how their revenue, customer ratings, and agent efficiency changed, whether they were using video or whether they were not using video with their customer interactions. And you can see the blue bars there are when they use video, the green bars are when are those companies rather who are not using video. And every one of those areas, there's a measurable improvement in all of those business metrics. Even without video, you're seeing an improvement in business metrics when you do a CX transformation project, no doubt. Otherwise, why do it, right? If you don't see that, it's really not a transformation. But if you're using video in the CX world, you're going to see even a better improvement in revenue, ratings, and agent efficiency. So I think those are really important points.
Yeah, I think there's a common misperception when we talk about video in the contact center about it's going to be a video like we're having right now where you're talking to the customer, see it as a violation of privacy and it's not necessarily that. It's not going to be in every situation. It's not going to be in normal routine situations, but it opens up a whole new set of possibilities. And you think about all these industries, for example, that have customer facing people in uniforms. One from a hotel, for example, and I talk to somebody at the front desk, connection on a phone, and then when I walk down to the front desk, I was the one who called. You're the one I was speaking to. I recognize you. And these are people that are already in uniforms and, like I said, customer facing. And I think there's just, I don't think there's enough people thinking about the future or the possibilities of what video unlocks in customer service as they think about just the way we do it now. So,
and then, one other quick point before we get off this, sort of topic about, I think the other really thing that everyone needs to be looking at is analytics, whether that's voice of the customer analytics or agent analytics. I believe both are very important and both are intricate, connected. For example, in our research, we're showing that when agent turnover is below 15%, CSAT rises by 26%. So it just goes to show that when you've got a stable set of agents, when you've got people who are happy with their job, they're staying there, it really does show, it really gives you data to prove that happy employees equal happy customers. So the more you can really focus on looking at your analytics, what are customers like? What are they saying they dislike? What are my post-call surveys looking like? What are open-ended comments on broader sites? Like if, Dave's example, hotels.com, if someone leaves an open-ended, nobody has the human resources to actually read all those comments, but AI can do that for you and really look at, what are companies saying? Are they positive, negative, or mixed, and what do we need to change? And even feeding as quickly as possible regular quick post-call survey data right back into the agent so they can see, wow, this morning I didn't score well on whatever area. I got to figure out what I'm doing wrong so I can get my numbers up again. That's going to really turn things around quickly. The problem is about a quarter of companies actually gather data, analyze the data, and act on the data. You've got a bunch of companies who actually gather it and a bunch of companies who analyze it, which is a big waste of time because they're not doing anything with it. A lot of them actually act. Just a really important point. Sorry, Dave.
Well, I think you're describing, and I'm not 100% sure, possibly Zoom IQ. What do you think, Heidi?
Absolutely. There's going to be some intelligence that gets pulled into those post conversations that allow people to take action and drive insights and make folks better. And I think that this is also the magic of UC plus CC, right? It's not just the academic reasons of, consolidating tools, bringing together interfaces, both on the front end and back end. There's also an analytics component to it, right?
That's right.
So excellent. I always love your research, Robin. It just validates, I think, some of the intuition that we have, and then conversations that we drive with our own customers. So again, just this idea that you bring together the front office and the back office. I do love the idea that agents are also no longer on these islands, so they can join those office channels and chats. They can feel connected. So there's clearly value in that as you have measured. So, all right, this has been a great conversation. Super insights, which of course is no surprise. So let's make this conversation actionable for our viewers. So besides watching the breakouts after this session, what are the 3 action items you think everybody should go do today? So Robin, you.
Okay, so I'm going to say, first of all, I think companies need to invest in CX. And I got hard data to back that up for you if you're having trouble getting budget. Our success group, they're spending 4% of revenue on CX technologies. That is huge. Unsuccessful companies, those in the bottom end of our success group, or not in the success group, are spending 1.7%. It's not always the case that successful companies spend more. In some technology areas, they don't. They do. So if you're not spending right now, it's going to be very hard to be successful. You've got to invest in the technology. This is a hugely, quickly changing area right now. So I would say that's one big thing. Another, I would say, is to make sure that you're integrating and expanding. And what I mean by that is integrate your front and back office together, like we were talking about, but also expand your interaction channels so that you're taking advantage of that integration by, for example, bringing in video. Now that you've got front and back office integrated, it's a lot easier to then bring in video and visual engagement into the conversation, into your customer interactions. So that's probably number 2. And number 3, I'm going to go back. I mean, I could give you 10, 20, I could nonstop here, but I'd say the other big thing is all about data and analytics. So make sure you're gathering, analyzing, and acting upon your analytics for both agents and customers.
Excellent, Robin. Thank you. Okay, Dave, your turn. What are the top 3 action items every leader should be thinking about?
Recording in progress. And I go back to my light bulbs and my phones and all these things that why do we have these modifiers? Why do we have a front office and a back office? We need to really think about that. And you know, we've been talking about in enterprise comms tearing down silos for a long time. And so we're seeing that certainly within the enterprise comms space between UC and CC and other applications of meetings, et cetera, within the enterprise. Like I said, number one, you know, who are our agents? Maybe it's the people in the store are our agents. Maybe it's other people are our agents that we don't normally think of that way. And then lastly, I'll reinforce what Robin said about analytics. So much of what we've done in the contact center has been on a sample basis. I'm going to listen in on some phone calls. I'm going to monitor this particular employee if it needs more coaching, whatever. And that's not scalable. It's a one-on-one type of thing. That's all I can do. And what Robin talked about with the AI could actually listen to every conversation, can measure sentiment, can measure kind of results or CSAT on every call. It's a total game changer. It really changes exactly what we can do in customer service and in enterprise-wide communications for that matter. So embrace analytics and look at what you can do with that. It'll be number 3.
Excellent. I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thank you both for bringing your expertise to us today as we work towards creating a total experience for our employees and customers. So that's it from us today. Back to you, Gary. Oh, and actually one more, I guess one more point from Dave and Robin before we go back to Gary. Any kind of parting thoughts? I know that there's been a lot of industry moments here recently. I know, Dave, you just got back from your visit to CX World. Also, Enterprise Connect was a few weeks ago. Any other themes that you'd like to share with our audience before we drop it back?
One of the most popular themes we're hearing at these various events right now, and coming from companies like Zoom and others, is this concept of the hybrid office. And I just want to say, every time I hear the word hybrid, I just want to say this little soapbox item here. Hybrid to me is always a transition, and the best example is cars. We know the past was petrol cars. We know the future is probably electric cars. And in the middle, the transition is this hybrid. And transitions are important. You know, we can't do things overnight. Battery technology, charging stations, all this stuff has to be built out. It takes time. And so the hybrid office is an important transition. I believe the future is going to be a much more distributed and remote type of workforce. But it takes time. We got to figure out the things I talked about earlier with ideation, development of relationships and discovery. These types of things are still need to be discovered. So the hybrid office is a real important transition, but it is indeed a transition in my opinion.
It's a transition, and one thing Gary said back at Enterprise Connect at our moment is, we might not get it right the first time, but the reality is as long as we have the customers and our employees at the center, I think we'll eventually get to what's right for everybody. So
we are definitely going into uncharted waters here, and so there's going to be a lot of experimentation by both the enterprise vendors and the enterprises trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. A lot of pasta on the wall here, so a lot of experimentation.
I just think I've been doing research in the CX world for a while now, and I feel like we're at a point, we're kind of at a turning point where companies are really, really embracing the power of the customer, and they're sort of making their buying decisions around that. You know what I mean? It's like we did have a lot of time where everything in the contact center was all about operational efficiency and operational costs. And if you asked, what was the most important thing, it was cutting costs. Now, the most important thing is improving CSAT. It's not about cutting costs. So that's been a big difference that we've seen this year. And it's just, when you think about customers, social media, because of that, one viral social media post can make or break a company. And the sooner companies realize that, the better. And they need to really make sure that they're investing not only in the technology, but the people, and making sure that they don't look at customer experience as just the contact center. It is the frontline workers. It is the contact center workers, but it's also every employee in the company. And by integrating the technology, you can integrate the people now too, and everybody's kind of helping out, and with the customer sort of being the king and the customer truly being the focus of everything we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, Robin, Dave, thank you for bringing your expertise to us today. I'm excited to see what's next. So that's it from us today. Back to you, Gary.
Thank you, Heidi. And a big thanks to Robin and Dave for giving us a glimpse into what it means to reframe the customer experience in today's business landscape. You know, personally, I was so invigorated by Dave's comment about how every aspect of the customer experience is in flux right now and changing. This is such an exciting time to be having this conversation and exploring how we can impact and innovate customer experiences as we move forward. But let's not lose sight of Robin's point about introducing screen share and video into customer experience. That was incredibly powerful. The ability of visual engagement to increase customer sat, reduce time waste, increase revenue, makes this, a no-brainer to integrate into our customer relationships. I loved also that you talked about investing in CX and integration. Okay, next, we're going to shift perspective to hear from a panel of Zoom's customers, just like yourselves, who will share some strategies they're implementing to support meeting clients where they already are. I'm so happy to introduce Zoom's customer advocacy lead, Megan Donaldson, as she is joined in a panel discussion with 3 Zoom clients. Megan, let's turn it over to you.
Advocacy here at Zoom. What an exciting day it has been so far. There's so much to learn about creating delightful customer experiences that directly translate to more loyal customers and greater success. So to recap, we heard from Oded Gal and Brian Solis as they discussed the future of both the employee and customer experience. Then our esteemed outside analyst gave their take on where the customer experience transformation is taking us. And now what I'd like to do is shift our focus to meeting customers where they already are. Today, it has been mentioned repeatedly that flexibility is key when it comes to positive customer experiences. Each customer brings their own unique background and experience to every interaction with your company, and so it's vital that we meet them where they feel the most comfortable. And speaking of customers, I am thrilled to be joined by some of Zoom's very own today from Gainsight, Qualtrics, and Box. And I can't think of a better way to continue this conversation than to hear from these 3 thought leaders who live and breathe customer experience and customer success. So welcome, gentlemen. Dan, I'm going to start with you. You are the Chief Evangelist Officer at Gainsight. So why don't you introduce yourself by briefly explaining for our audience your role, this kind of, I guess you can't call it a CEO, but a CEO, and how long you've been with Gainsight.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. It's a pleasure to be here. What is a chief evangelist? It's always a question I get. It sounds like a really fun job, and it is. Basically, what it means for us at Gainsight is I do everything I can to get in front of as many people as possible to talk about customer success. That's the entirety of the job description. I've been around for a while. I was the first VP of customer success at Marketo about 12 years ago, one of the earlier scaling SaaS companies. And then I joined Gainsight almost 10 years ago now as the chief customer officer. Have been chief evangelist twice. And in the between, I spent 4 years in Europe building our European operations. So I've been doing this for a while. It's exciting to see how much focus Zoom has on customers and customer experience. And that's been my experience in working with Zoom. So it's really great to be here with all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dan. Glad to have you with us here today. And next we have Bruce Temkin. So Bruce, you are the head of the Qualtrics XM Institute, and you're also often referred to as the godfather of customer experience. So Bruce, please tell us a bit about the XM Institute and your background that earned you this incredible title.
So as you can tell, I've been doing this a while. I think my gray hair gives some of that away. I currently lead the Qualtrics XM Institute. I'm lucky enough to have a faculty of some of the world's leading experts in experience management covering areas like customer and employee experience. And we publish Thought Leadership, lead a global community of nearly 6,000 customer experience and employee experience professionals with a robust set of monthly activities, many of which happen on Zoom, as it turns out. And just about all of our resources are for free at xminstitute.com. So that's what I'm really excited about. Prior to Qualtrics, I led Temkin Group for 8 years, where we worked with many of the world's largest, most iconic brands in helping them transform how they operate around customers. And prior to that, I was with Forrester Research for about 12 years, where I led several of the different research teams. So somewhere along that world, somewhere between Forrester and Temkin Group, someone labeled me the godfather of customer experience, and it seems to have stuck.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bruce. Glad to have you here today. And finally, we are joined by John Herstein. So at the top of today's keynote, we heard Oded mention the trend of companies placing more importance in hiring a chief customer officer or CCO. So it's very fitting that we have Box's CCO, John, here with us today. John, I'm hoping you can introduce yourself by explaining a bit more about your role at Box and the value that you believe a chief customer officer brings to an organization and its customers.
Sure. Thanks, Megan, and great to be here. Hope you can all hear me okay. I'm having a little bit of internet issue here, but I'm hoping it's all going to work out. And yeah, I started in customer success probably a similar time to when Dan did. So about 11, 12 years ago, I started. We were a very small company then. We didn't have a team called customer success. We basically had a services organization. We had the goal to build a consulting team as well. We rolled them all up together and called it customer term, but that was sort of what we were starting to see in the market of it. You know, what do you call the post-sale service teams? And so that's the role I've been in ever since. Wasn't a CCO role 4 or 5 years ago, and I think the importance of that title really is, I think it sends a message to the market and to our customers and really internally about the importance of customers to us as a business. And I think every company would say customers are the lifeblood of our business. They're the most important thing. But I think when you actually create and sustain a C-level role that is responsible for the success of your customers, it sends a different message than sort of not doing that. So that's been, I think, really important. I think it's core to what we do, and I'm happy to have the title. I am working for the Godfather title. I'm not sure Godfather of what yet. So Bruce, if you got any tips on sort of empty space of the Godfather market, I would love to angle for one of those titles.
I love it. Well, it's so wonderful to have the three of you join us today as we talk about meeting customers where they already are. So let's jump right in. It goes without saying that there has been a lot of change over the past couple of years. And we heard earlier today that delightful customer experiences start with positive employee experiences. So I'm curious to know how you've seen the shift to the work from anywhere workforce. So whether that's hybrid or remote or on site, how has that impacted customer interactions? And Bruce, I'd love to start with you, knowing that at the XM Institute, you span both employee and customer experience.
Yeah, it's one of the things I probably said 1,000 times, and if you know me, it's probably 10,000, is that the customer experience you deliver externally is a reflection of how you operate internally. I think good customer experience oozes out. It's not built on the outside, it's not designed in, it oozes from who you are. And the last couple of years have made it hard for good anything to ooze out, with employees being disrupted, both from their professional business work lives, but also in their personal and health lives, right? Everything's been disrupted. And I think the hybrid model is just a manifestation of this disruption that employees have seen. And I think this disruption has caused all sorts of customer experience problems, because employees are trying to figure out how are they going to work in this new mode? How are they going to deal with all the craziness that life has been throwing at them? So organizations have been trying to catch up by figuring out how do they re-engage employees in a new working model while still trying to meet the needs of customers. And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But I think it's a pretty interesting environment. And I do think that the certainly the shift that we've seen with employees, whether it's in the contact center or whether it's in an engineering group or whether it's, frontline employees who are taking orders at a restaurant, that all of those shifts have caused some disruption to what people might have thought of as being good customer experience in the past.
Great, John, I'm going to go over to you. So Box is a cloud content management company and platform that highly enables this anywhere worker. Anything to add on how this shift has impacted customer interactions?
I mean, a couple of things I would say, and maybe I'll touch on a couple of things around the employee experience and the customer experience, if that's okay, because I do think that is really, really important. Like, we have it ingrained into our culture and values, the importance of customers. We talked about the importance of the CCO title as part of that, but also one of our core values, one of our sub-core values is what we call blow a customer's mind. And that's been true from day one. We first wrote down our values in 2011. We've refreshed them over the years, and that one has held true throughout. It's not just, putting that up on a wall somewhere and saying, well, those are our values, look over there, but actually, how do we build it into what we do? And as one example, we have a company-wide quarterly recognition award for blowing our customers' minds, whether it's external customers, internal customers. And so we actually reward and recognize, employees for doing that. At the same time, we have a very strong focus on culture. And we were just named, I think 2 days ago, to the Fortune 100 list of best places to work. We've got a similar from Glassdoor recently. And I think it's really true. If your employees are engaged, if your employees feel like they believe in the values and the mission of the company, that will show how they interact with your customers. And I think that's a really, really important part of what any company does. And I think Box does it quite well. In terms of kind of the shift, clearly we're in this, slowly moving to hybrid from kind of pure remote. I think we, as a pure SaaS company from day one, we were very well prepared. No one asked me to say this from Zoom, but I will say we were in the process of moving the whole company to Zoom pre-pandemic. So we were very, very well positioned when everything went virtual, that we already had technology in place. We trained our employees about how to use it. We had Zoom rooms in the office, which didn't get used for a couple of years, but we were very, very well enabled. And not all of our customers work, right? So we had to work with them, and we're still working through that. We are starting to see customers be more open to us coming visit them on site. We have a process for sort of approving that, making sure we meet with health and safety kind of guidelines. We're all still figuring out. And while we would love to get back in touch with customers, in person, we've got to be respectful of kind of what their policies and culture are, and just kind of work with them as we go. I will say one thing that's been lost both internally and externally is the casual, random interactions that you used to get in person. And that was obviously true inside of a company headquarters, inside of our remote offices, but also if you think about going to see a customer, in the old days, you would go, you'd wait in the lobby, someone would come pick you up to a conference room, but you would be walking down the halls with that person or a couple people. While you waited for people to get into the room, there'd be a bit of chit chat. Maybe you take them to lunch after the meeting. Maybe you'd have drinks or dinner. A lot of that has been lost, and it's really hard to recreate that in a scheduled structure. Like, we've got a 1 hour meeting, this is the agenda, and we're all remote. So we've got to find ways to bring that back to really kind of improve the customer experience.
Dan, over to you. Anything to add here about the shift to the anywhere workforce and how that's impacting customer interactions?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. I do think, as is always the case, the pendulum swings too far in one direction, then it swings too far back. And there's somewhere in the middle where it makes the most sense. And I think hybrid is that middle ground for our workers. There's also an interesting thing that's happened in the customer success, customer experience world, and that is, as we were forced to go kind of fully remote, a lot of that had happened already, but we were still going face to face with customers. In some ways, the fully remote thing has a little bit of a weird side benefit, and that is, people often think about customer experience and customer success as, let's make our customers happy, or let's do whatever we can to have our customers like us. And that's actually the wrong way to think about it. It's not about whether the customers like you or not. It's whether they're getting value and their experience with you is a positive one. And the less we are in person with customers, the less we can rely on our personality and the fact that our customers like us. So I think in some ways, The move to fully remote, which will now switch back to more hybrid, has been a positive thing because I've always said to my teams, I don't really care very much whether your customer likes you, because they're not going to renew their contract or buy more from us because they like you. They're going to do that only if they're getting value out of our product. So we always try to keep the focus on value instead of relationship. And so the last couple of years have been weird in a whole bunch of ways, but there's one little side benefit that I've seen, and it's forced all of the customer-focused people in the world to focus on value and not so much on relationship.
And Dan, I'm going to ask you to do our audience a favor, for those that may not know. How do you describe the relationship between customer success and customer experience?
It's a great question. We get asked all the time. There's a couple of different answers to it. One is organizational. Excuse me. Organizationally, I think they're different, but they fit together, kind of like customer success and customer support. Very different, but they fit together. There's a high requirement of collaboration. At Gainsight, we are, quote unquote, the customer success company, but we also have SVP of customer experience, because we live, to a certain degree, we live with this equation that we made up, which is customer success is the combination of two things, and you could argue only two things. One is what we call customer outcomes, which is, do they get the value from your product that you promised them during the sales process? And the other part of the equation is customer experience. In other words, do they enjoy working with you as a company? Are you responsive to them? Do they like the people? Do they enjoy your culture? Something John said is really important. Like, if people at our company love our culture and love their jobs, that starts to go outwards to the customers. So I think customer success is really focused largely on customer outcomes. Are they getting value out of our product? And then customer experience is much more focused on, do the customers enjoy working with us? Are they proud to be our customers? Do they like our interactions? Do we get the invoices right? It goes down to some pretty little things like, are their invoices correct? And do they get through to support when they need to call support? So there's an area there that needs a lot of focus, and that's, in our world, those two components are part of the same organization. Both report to our chief customer officer. To go back to that idea of having a chief customer officer, anything that happens post-sales falls under the chief customer officer, and both customer success and customer experience report up to our chief customer officer.
Wonderful. Thanks for that clarification. I'm going to pivot a little bit and go over to Bruce. I've got a new question for you. So as you observe transition across industries and in your own industry, what are some best practices that you've seen implemented in regard to the customer experience, and where are you still seeing some challenges?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because keeping on theme of the shift that's going on, the last couple of years have forced companies to adopt what I've historically seen as best practices anyway. So the companies, in order to survive in the shifts because of COVID and supply chains and employee shortages, have had to put in place processes where they are becoming faster and quicker at learning. And what we've always described customer experience capability as is three things: the ability to continuously learn what customers are thinking and feeling, the capability to propagate those insights to people across the organization, and then to establish processes to rapidly adapt to what they're learning. So this combination of continuously learn, propagate insights, and rapidly adapt represent what we would call the fundamental best practices around customer experience. So some of the things we've seen there is when it comes to constantly learning, we've seen companies go from a focus of like measuring a single metric on a quarterly basis, whether it's Net Promoter Score or something else, to having more pulse-like inputs from after transactions or after journeys, so they keep up to date on what customers are thinking and feeling. And then when it gets to propagating those insights, companies go on from looking at broad measures about how all customers are doing and sharing everyone with the same detail, to being more targeted and saying, okay, this is a customer segment that we think is being really impacted by the changes in the environment. So let's look at that segment more and in more detail and put that information in the hands of whether it's a product manager or a service organization. And let's ramp up our closed loop responses so we're talking to those customers more frequently to understand what's going on. And then to rapidly adapt, right? Companies, the best practices I see are companies that not only are listening to customers and trying to understand it, but they say, we're going to need to change, whether it's our development processes, where we have to add, if we're working in a sprint, like with sprints, we need to add cycles to our sprints to accommodate things we're going to learn, or whether it's a contact center that's going to regularly update scripts based on what we're hearing from customers. We have to put in place the capacity to rapidly change. And so those things are the best practices we continue to see. But the good news is during COVID, it's pushed people to actually do them correctly.
Yeah, we heard a lot today about the importance of flexibility and that kind of rapid adaptability, agility. It's all about being comfortable with change, isn't it? Dan or John, anything to add there?
Not for me. Bruce, as the godfather, he has the final say on these things. So,
yeah, I'm not going to argue with Godfather of customer experience.
Wonderful. John, I'm going to go back to what you were saying before about Box being, what was it, blowing your customers' minds. And I think I've even seen it go a step further of like delivering an experience they could have never imagined. You gave some great examples before about how this is put into practice at Box and how you prioritize the customer experience. Anything else to share there, or other examples from Bruce or Dan, or how you are prioritizing customer experience at Qualtrics and at Gainsight?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, we're a B2B software company. We deal a lot with enterprise, and I don't think we've got like the crazy stories of like delivering pizzas to customers and those sorts of things. So I think it's maybe more subtle than that. I think it just more has to do with really focusing on the outcomes. Dan talked about this a lot, but at the end of the day, I actually do think it's important that customers like you, but agree with Dan, it's much more important that they're getting value, they're getting out. And so just getting the team really rallied around that. And what I say to my team is, and this is actually an epiphany, because early in my customer success stage, I really talked mostly about customer delight. And maybe it was Dan who taught me this at some point, where it's like, customer delight is important, but it's insufficient, right? It has to be about value. It has to be about outcomes. But I want that to happen in a delightful way, right? So what I try and instill in my team is that our job is to serve the customer, but also sometimes to challenge the customer. Sometimes to get the outcomes the customer wanted when they purchased your product, they have to be challenged to do things differently, right? Maybe they're too complacent. Maybe they're not getting aggressive enough around things like change management and user adoption, and we have to push them a bit. That can mean a bit less delight in exchange for better outcomes, but it's important for us to do that. But wherever possible, we want to find that right balance. And I think just building a team that really thinks customer first is how you're going to get the kinds of experiences that you want, and also empowering them to do things that make sense. And one of the things I say to my team a lot too is that I want your first instinct to always be the customer-friendly answer to whatever it is, right? Now, we can't always do that, right? Sometimes a customer says, I'm not happy with X, Y, Z, I want a refund. Well, we also have contracts we have to uphold, right? So you can't always do exactly what the customer demands. That's not a reasonable way to run business. Our instinct should be, what can we do for the customer? And then let's figure out a mutually sort of agreeable solution for us and the customer.
That's wonderful. So not only delightful experiences, but also adding value along the way is what I'm hearing. So we've got about 5 minutes or so left. So what I'm going to do is direct a question to all of you. So in 30 seconds or so, maybe a minute, can you share a couple action items that our guest here today should consider implementing as soon as possible to ensure that they keep their customers happy and maintain an edge over the competition? Bruce, I'm going to go back to you first.
Sure. So I think the whole way to keep an edge over your competition is really to learn more and engage your employees effectively. That to me is number one, right? So what I would do right away is I would make sure that I have a mechanism for listening to my employees and taking action on what they say, because it turns out that employees have a good vision into what's happening to customers and what's getting in the way of delivering good experience. And it turns out that when you listen to employees and you act on what they say, they end up being even more loyal, engaged employees. So that's a win. That's one thing I would do right away. The other thing I would do, especially in this environment, and we've labeled 2022 the year of agility, is really think about how are you putting in place more agile operating process? How are you listening more to customers? How are you questioning the things you've done in the past and say they're not going to be good for the future? How do you look for new customer segments? And how do you look at customers in terms of their journeys, not just individual interactions? That's my 45 seconds.
Dan, I'm going to pivot over to you.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I will always be on my soapbox on this one, Megan, so I'll call you out on referring to customers, making customers happy. As John alluded to, I used to always shout when people would say that, because our goal is really not to make customers happy. If they're happy, that's great, but the real goal has to be value. And so you have to find ways to measure whether customers are getting value. And then if you're really going to be an effective organization, you have to tie those metrics to revenue. Because if you can't tie it to revenue, you're never going to really have a seat at the table. You're never going to get the CEO's attention the way you need to, because they're always going to lean into product or sales when given the opportunity. But if you think about how the world of SaaS has changed everything, when you're a SaaS company, within about 3 or 4 years, typically, you start getting more of your revenue from existing customers than you do from new customers. And if you're around 10 years, or let's take a company called Salesforce, who's been around now for 23 years, by my best estimate, this year, Salesforce will get somewhere around between 85 and 90% of all of their revenue from existing customers. 15% will be coming from brand new customer acquisition. That's the reality of the world we live in. So if you're not focusing on the customer experience and tying everything you do to customer value and ultimately to revenue, you're missing the boat, because what we're trying to build is companies that would succeed even if they never sold another new customer. If we only had to live with our install base, it's a really great way to think about what you're doing on the customer side. What if you had to live forever as a company without ever signing a new customer? Would you be a thriving company? Would you be a growing company? Would you be a successful company? In the case of Salesforce, they'd still be one of the 100 best companies in the world, even if they never signed a new customer, because they have an existing set of loyal customers who are growing and buying more from them. So I think we have to put that into perspective and say that's where we need to put our focus. It's got to be on customers, because we're living in a customer-centric world.
And can I just add to that, Megan, a couple thoughts, and I apologize for video, but hopefully everyone can hear me okay on audio. Thumbs up, Dan, if you can hear me. Great. Yeah, a couple things. I did mention earlier the idea of employee recognition, like really call out and recognize employees when they do amazing things for your customers. That just shows the commitment of the company to that. Put some wood behind the arrow there, whether it's, spot bonuses or what have you, but really call that out to the company that we value that, and that's important internally. Second is, partner internally with all of the other stakeholders that influence the customer experience, right? So it's not just customer success and sales that talk to customers directly. Obviously, that's a huge part of our jobs. But also, the marketing organization and how they engage with customers, your analytics teams and how they understand customers, ops teams, all of that influences the customer experience. So don't think if you're in customer success that you've got to go it alone. Partner with those folks, and in particular with product, right? It's really, really important that those two work together well. I believe a huge responsibility of a customer success function is to provide really honest feedback to the product team about what customers value, what they don't value, what they like, what they don't like, and be an influential voice internally to the product team. I think that's your responsibility. And then the last thing I'll say as a really specific tip is advisory boards, right? Have advisory boards, perhaps not just one, and make them true advisory boards. You see too many companies where an advisory board is really just sort of a kind of a marketing thing, right? It's like, let me broadcast out to who I consider really important customers, what we're doing, what we care about. That's important, but it's actually as or more important to get their honest feedback back to you about your strategy, your roadmap, what's working well, what's not working well. Give them direct access to key executives in the company. Have a true advisory board is the last tip I'd leave you with.
I'll go +1 on the advisory boards. Really, really valuable, extremely important. And it builds loyalty with customers too. If you let them inside the curtain a little bit, and that's one of the things that you get when you do advisory boards, really important.
I'll give that another +1. So we have actually a little bit more time. So I'm going to follow up because we talked about SaaS companies, kind of mostly B2B focused. You mentioned Salesforce, Dan. So what do you think other industries and B2C companies can learn from kind of customer success philosophy and best practices? What tips would you give for those in the audience today?
Yeah, I think the customer success principles apply beyond B2B. They clearly do. If you think about the word subscription, which we use all the time as SaaS companies, subscriptions didn't start in B2B, right? They started in B2C with newspapers and magazines and whatever. So the B2C world has to operate differently because of the volume of customers. But if you think about it, what does the Apple Genius Bar provide? It provides a place where you can use their products better. They will help you use their products better. That's the definition of customer success. Think about when you do airline travel. I get a text in the morning from United Airlines saying, hey, this is your gate. Your flight's can be delayed by 10 minutes. Do you want to check luggage, et cetera? They're doing customer success. They're trying to make your customer experience better. They're going to improve the value that you're going to get out of working with them. So I think many of the principles are being applied, and then the digital world is allowing us to apply those at scale, where you can do email and you can do text and you can mine your interactions with customers through AI to understand their sentiment much better than we could ever do before. And in the long run, potentially even replacing NPS as the way that you gather sentiment information. So I think some of those things are extremely exciting going forward. And I love the fact, obviously, for us and for everyone, that customer success and customer experience is going way beyond B2B and way beyond the technology world. It's just where that just happened to start there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dan, for bringing us home today. John, Bruce, Dan, really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with all of us today. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'm going to hand it over back to Gary. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Megan, and our customer panel for that informative discussion about meeting customers where they already are. I really like Dan's comments about how temporarily going to fully remote had a side benefit, that we should be worrying less about customers liking us and more about providing value and trust. This is what they want. And then there was Bruce's point. It was so interesting about how this shift has forced companies to adopt best practices and processes that make them faster and quicker at learning. And that's so vital to strong customer experiences. Continuously learn, propagate insights, and rapidly adapt. A powerful and simple roadmap to follow. But listen to John's comments. Blowing customers' minds and creating customer advisory boards. Thank you to all of them. Now we're going to take a deeper dive into Zoom solutions and product tracks, and we're going to focus on 3 pillars. Zoom Events, amplifying through meaningful connections. Zoom Contact Center, supporting customers every step of the way. And our latest innovation, Zoom IQ, improving seller performance and customer experience. 3 great choices. Okay, so I know you can't attend all 3 at once, but they will be recorded and available so you can watch them as soon as you're able. And I will see all of us at the end of the product tracks.